When I did my certificate in funeral directing, I then learned that the term funeral director in Singapore is loosely used, right? Funeral director is like, wow, everybody wants to hold the title as a funeral director because it's equivalent to a managing director. But when I did my certificate, then I realized, oh, funeral directors is just the person who directs the funeral, just like your movie director. Yeah, right. So then you have a funeral arranger. So the funeral arranger is the one who arranged the funeral. It could be the same person, it could be a different person. Then they pass the job over to the person who's doing the director, the funeral director. So that means on the funeral day, they will be the one who makes sure everything is in place. That's why you call them the director. Then of course there's the operation team. So maybe in Singapore everyone wears a lot of hat lah.
What's up? And welcome to another episode of the KopiBros show presented by Chit Podcast Network. Now, today, we had the chance to talk to Angjolie Mei or Angjolie Mei, who is actually a funeral director. She's a speaker, she's a writer, has a lot of 身份, a lot of different roles. We can agree that it was one of the very few interviews we asked one question, don't need to ask follow-up one. She just talked.
Yeah. She really know what like the industry is lacking, or what she feels like the industry is lacking, and she really shared like where did she go, the countries that she visited to get like to really get an on-site experience, or like how to make the industry better in her own way.
I think some of her stories, like a lot of these stories, like even Channel 8 can't write this kind of stories, right? The one that she told us about, like how she met this very upbeat person that planned her own funeral and how the funeral ended. I felt that was such a nice story. I think without further ado, let's get into the episode. Welcome to the KopiBros show presented by Chit Podcast Network. Now today we have a prominent figure in Singapore's funeral and legacy planning industry, best known as the founder of the Life Celebrant and the Life Legacy. With over 20 years of experience, she is one of the very few certified female funeral directors in Singapore and is recognized as the country's only exclusive funeral celebrant. Now, in addition to writing her bestseller Dying to Meet You, and of course his Chinese translation 爱的告别, she has also received accolades such as the Most Innovative Award at the 2019 Women Entrepreneur Awards, Teochew Entrepreneur Awards with an S. Please join me in welcoming Angjolie Mei.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Intro is one of the longest intros. Some of my guest intro not so celebrated one, but
achieve so much,
No, but I think I'm just lucky that maybe this field there's suddenly there's more interest and people are more aware, people are getting more ready. So I guess that's also something that suddenly there's more interest in finding out what's legacy planning and what's funeral or experiences all about. Yeah.
Yours is also one of the very few interviews I didn't have to ask ChatGPT or like do much research about. I just read the book.
Oh yeah? Yes. Oh, 谢谢你. You got the fifth print, is it? Oh, nice.
Mine is third because I bought it I got it like a few years back. Yeah, and I regretted not reading it then because I read it last week. It was I enjoyed the book so much, but I had to force myself to put it away because some of the themes and some of the story shared were so heavy. Yeah, then I also went through a personal loss last year, so I just found it like wow.
Oh, sorry.
Like I had to put it down. Yeah, then I had to like pick it out another day lah. Yeah.
Oh, take your time. In fact, there's also books where I read that I also took 1 year to read it. It's so sometimes it's certain stories especially it hits you, and but don't worry about it. You can also get to hear it from me. I will have more stories for you. So and plus, let me help you sign that book. Okay, you have the third edition, a third print. Actually, now we're in the fifth print already.
Ooh.
So one of the very first few stories you told in the book, right, was how you came to have such a unique name, Angjolie or Angjolie Mei. So maybe before I pass the questions on to Brandon, could you just explain to our viewers how did this special name came about?
Okay, so most people when I was growing up with, they will probably know me as Ang Mei Mei, Hong Mei Mei. So this was the given name, my birth name. So I've been, sort of this name growing up. I've always been very quiet. You probably think that how can this person who is an introvert be on podcasts and maybe on YouTube. I'm actually very introverted. A lot of people said I had a transformation, and they always wonder if the change of name actually helped me. So my name was Hong Mei Mei. So one day I saw a Dao Shi, he's quite interesting fella. He said, "Come on, let me see your 八字," and we just 看玩玩的, he's just like, let me just see and analyze for you for free, So then when he analyzed for me, the first thing he said was, "Oh, you're gonna be based on your 笔画, based on the number of strokes, right? The Chinese character, you will end up being alone in this life, so not married and all that lah." So I was like, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah. So how do people call you in English, your English name?" So I said, "Oh, because as I was growing up, started to in the working world, I thought very kiddish to call me Mei 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 Mei, right? So I purposely changed it to Mei Ang, MEI, then Ang at the back. So then he was a Taiwan Taoist priest, right? So he speaks Hokkien. So he's like, "Aiya, msi tio lo," like that is Mei Ang the Bo Ang lo. No husband lah. Mei Ang is no husband. So he said, "Yeah, you need to change your name." So I think that was the first time my mom agreed that I should change my name, my Chinese name. So actually my Chinese name is Hong Yu Xiu. 那个玉也是金字边的一个玉啦，玉秀这个爱的告别后。So then, but the English name was also one of the reasons I was always very inspired by Angelina Jolie. The way she is, how she can always carry herself. So coincidentally, if you look at Jolie, it's also the same meaning in French, May. So I wanted to keep the essence, the name, the purpose of the name, Hong Mei Mei. So the first May, I changed it to Jolie, which is in French, the same meaning. So it became Angelina, like Angelina Jolie. So, but so that's how people can remember me, from Singapore, Singapore version. Yes.
How do you even come across like Jolie is like for French May? Yeah.
Actually, I don't really know, but I was trying to research, right? So I remember asking my sister, "Hey, should I put as Angjolie?" So it was Anglique, Que. So then my sister was like, "Since you like Angelina Jolie and you like Angelina Jolie, why don't you just combine Angjolie to be unique?" So if you Google Angjolie, I think I'm the only one. But if anyone have that name later on, means they copy my name or they name their child after me which I must give thanks to them. It must give me thanks, It's a new name. Even in French, it's also not something that people have. So it was only after I changed my name, then I met my husband. And then my husband is French. So so whenever people ask like, "Oh, did you change your name for him?" I said, "No, I changed my name, then I met him."
Wow, that's
so
so cool. That's such a the fact that after they changed your name, then you really managed to meet the husband.
So it was like, so I always go to the immigration in France. They were like, "Oh," they look at my passport. I was like, "Oh, Angelina Jolie." I was like, "Yeah, Singapore."
We normally start our podcast interviews by learning about the origins of our guests, and we would like to take it all the way back. So in your book, you did mention how you entered the industry. So perhaps you could share with our listeners your experience growing up and why you actually in the end joined this industry as well.
Thanks for asking, because a lot of people thought I grew up in the funeral industry or my dad brought me to his shop. But actually growing up, I've never stepped foot to work with my dad, because my dad, he's quite traditional, and never once did he say to us, because we have 3 girls and then 1 boy, and my brother is 15 years my junior. So it was not a regular, weekend where we go and hang out at his shop. It was more of, we just do our things. My dad works and we never have to help out. Even if we go to the office, it's always in his office. We never go to the back of the house. But sometimes we do see the office, how they make the casket. So growing up, I've never been really exposed. But unfortunately, after graduating from NUS, I started my first job in a logistics firm. I would say, unfortunately, after 1.5 years of working, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. So I have to then quickly step into helping my mom support the business, and then became my dad's caretaker when he was sick. But from the point when my dad was diagnosed to his passing, it was very short, within a span of only 4 months. And then after my dad passed away, that's when I have to immediately step in. So I quit my job. Thank goodness I have a very understanding boss who told me you don't need to serve notice, just go help your mom. Right. So I had a very understanding boss. He's also an SME owner. So he really wanted me to support my mom. So that's when I came into the industry. But of course, 24 years old, joining the funeral industry, it was very unheard of. You're talking about 21 years ago. It was so rare to have female or young ladies in the industry. Usually it's the tauke, the boss's wife, right? Tauke niao. But never do you have kids who have a degree holder, it's degree holder, joining the industry and then having to work with the boys, like the men who have worked with my dad for so many years. So there were a lot of learning, the very steep learning curve. And also because it is it's an industry where there's no education, right? People don't learn. There's no classes, there's no modules in Singapore. So, and there wasn't any books. 31 years ago, internet was not available. I cannot research on it. So it was really learning by watching. The best way to learn is just, they will ask you to just follow me, just watch, on job training, that kind. So that's how I enter back in 2004.
We actually read that you actually joined, left, then after that rejoined the industry. So what were the reason for rejoining and was it was it very different?
Yes, so I left actually because my mom kicked me out. Kicked me out. Yeah, she knows about that kick. So I guess when I first joined, my mom was really very adamant about it because she felt that being holding a degree, bachelor of arts, right? And she felt that 不要大材小用. And her mindset of the funeral industry is this industry is only for people who can't land up with a job. And she didn't want me to waste my degree in a way. Secondly, I think because as a mother and as a woman, she had maybe experienced some backlash when she first married my dad. Right. When she got married to my dad, she lost a lot of her friends because of her being related to the funeral. She's like, she married a funeral director, then pantang, superstitious. Correct. So she was very worried that I cannot find a husband. So she actually kicked me out. And then I actually went into financial advisory work. So the reason why I went into financial advisory work is also because of my dad. My dad, he's a tauke, right? So initially, I've always had this expectation that my dad would have taken care and prepare everything for the family. So tauke, business owner, he must have insurance, he must have will, he must have everything set up. But it's only after his passing, after the funeral, when I start to ask people, what's next? After the funeral, what do we do next? And someone said to me, you need to assess his estate and you need to apply for what we call a grant of letter of administration because my dad didn't write a will. So then I remember asking my mom, I said, Ma, Pa, does he has any insurance? And then my mom was like, don't know. Then I asked, like, what about will leh? He's like, everything also my mom had no idea because typical family, tauke, my dad, businessman, and he has only primary 6 education. So my mom has never once asked or discussed all these things with my dad. So my mom is like a housewife, take care of the 3 kids, and then plus my brother later on 4 kids. So that was a very steep learning curve because I think when my dad passed away, his name was tagged to the branding, Angjolie Funeral Parlor. So there were a lot of, sort of people in the industry telling members of the public, Angjolie has passed, so the business has already closed. But the truth is the daughter and the mother have already stepped in. So I guess there was this need for me to learn more about financial planning so that I can be better prepared. So I went into financial advisory for about 4 years. Actually, I did pretty well, but the calling to come back to the funeral has always been there because I wanted to provide a womb to tomb service, So cradle to grave. So even like my 4 years there, I keep thinking, how do I do that? Naturally, in 2009, I then came back to the funeral industry, but still, again, I had a lot of objection from my mom. Then it was only 2010, then I finally took the courage to tell her I want to start my own company. And so my mom, interestingly, typical mother, she she actually replied me, 你在问我还是在跟我讲? Are you telling me or asking? Then I said, I'm just telling you. Then she gave me a blessing. She said, go do whatever you want, but just don't touch your dad's brand. Because I think she still want to preserve the identity of my dad. Before being a mother myself, I probably may not understand some of the action that she has taken or decision that she has decided for me. But after being a mom, I really knew where her direction is. And I think because of my mom, I'm where I am today. If not, maybe I may not even be in this industry and we won't have this conversation. Yeah.
But in the book, you actually also mentioned that you also went overseas to learn about like how other countries and companies do their funeral service. So this was before you rejoined the industry, was it?
So after I joined, probably in 2005, then 2009, when I decided I want to come back to the funeral industry, that's where I first started. The catalyst to make me come back to the funeral industry was in 2009, there was a funeral director who happened to be in my mom's shop. And he said to me, hey, Angjolie, there's a funeral expo in Hong Kong. You should go. And then I was like, oh, really? A funeral expo? And I remember my mom said to me, 你不要去啊, you better don't go. so I was like, so I said,老板, you give me the details. So I took the details from him. Then the next thing, I went to my elder sis. I said, hey, I sponsor you. We go together. So we went. We went to Hong Kong. And my mom was, of course, very angry. She's like, I keep telling you to stop being in this industry, go and do other things. So I went to this Hong Kong expo, and actually my eyes were opened up, because to me, that was when I realized, wow, globalization, we don't just learn locally. We can learn from practices from other countries. So I think that spurred my started my interest of like maybe a pursuit of a perfect farewell. A farewell that's meaningful. So I started to visit countries like, so I went to quite a lot of countries, like Malaysia first, and I realized like our neighboring country actually do a lot of the way they conduct a funeral is way more advanced than us. More atas, the way they really facilitate the whole entire funeral. Then I went to Philippines. Later on, in 2010, I had the opportunity to go to Australia and New Zealand. So I actually volunteered my time there over a span of about 10 days to work in the back of the house, the front of the house, because I'm a strong believer that before you can run anything in the front of the house, you need to know how the back of the house operates. Yeah, and I think that was the learning I got from my logistics firm, where I learned the back of house first, then I became the customer service, then I went to marketing. So I could, facilitate and understand
the entire process.
So I think I always tell my friends, if you want to travel with me, just know that my 职业病, my occupational hazard is to visit funeral home and then cemetery, because I don't like shopping. So while y'all go shopping, I will go to do my own things. Usually they will leave me alone. I say, okay, we just meet at night. Yeah, so I will always find ways to go to funeral home. To visit, because I think you learn best from them. Through the experience.
Or we should give our listeners a bit of context about how a funeral is being held in Singapore. So maybe can you just take us through the whole process of like, okay, so when let's say a person is pronounced dead, from there until like the 出刷, until the final put the ashes back into the not back into the
columbarium,
into a place how does this whole thing work?
So generally, when someone passes away, of course, whether is it in the hospital, the hospice, nursing home, or at home, the first thing you need to do is to get the death certified. So it can be done by a doctor, or it can definitely by a doctor. It can be your attending doctor, or sometimes when patient's family said, "Oh, we don't have any doctors," then we can also engage the doctors that we have on hand. But if the death is maybe at home and is sudden, and the cause of death is not known, then of course we need to have to go through the autopsy, right? So definitely the police have to be activated to then proceed to transfer the departed to HSA, Health Science Authority, where then there's a decision to be made whether the body will be autopsied, to go through the autopsy process. So let's talk about a general case. When a person passes away, once the death certificate is issued, then the funeral home can actually start to transfer the departed into their care center. So at the care center is where the embalmers will then perform the embalming process. So in Singapore, we don't have the habit of having refrigeration because our funeral here in Singapore, we start immediately.
Very
And
fast.
also the weather is really, really hot. Like today, it was really hot.
Oh, yeah,
So
yes.
and most of the funeral is done at the void deck, right? So
Yeah.
we need to embalm the body so that you can still view him or her over the next 5 days. So under our company, we also have a service called Showers of Love. That's our unique selling point where we actually get family members to spend time with the departed as we do the dressing and makeup before we encoffin the departed. So it's that process of after embalming, most of the companies, after the embalming is done, then they will encoffin the loved one and then bring over to the funeral wake. But for us, there is still this part where we allow family members to together and spend time, and then where we do the makeup and the hairdo in front of the family. So until they are happy and pleased with the hairstyle and then the makeup, then we encoffin. Then we will start the funeral wake at the funeral venue. So the funeral venue in Singapore, you can have it at the void deck, multi-purpose hall, religious venue if they allow, usually churches. We have funeral parlors. There's quite a number of funeral parlors now, or your own private residence, right? So after that is, usually we ask family members how many days do they want the funeral wake to be. Typically, it's always odd number, 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7. And the reason why odd is because in Chinese you have a saying, 好事成双, good things comes in even numbers, right? 好事成双. Yeah, double. So whereas for funeral, it's not considered a lucky thing. So that's why usually people will do an odd number. Generally, we see more 5 days now and also 3 days. Back in the past, it will be more 5 to 7 days, usually that range. So after the funeral, then of course is where we go to the crematorium or the burial. So we will family members can choose between burial, but bearing in mind burial in Singapore only limited to 15 years if you are a non-Muslim. For a Muslim it's forever, because Muslim you don't even have a wake. You have to be buried. For Hindus also, right? They have is a pretty much a 1 day within the same day. So Muslim needs to be buried. So they usually have a sort of a lifetime space in the cemetery. Whereas for non-Muslim, then we are only entitled 15 years. So 15 years later, your grave would then have to be exhumed, and then you have to go through cremation again. Then you need to find a columbarium niche. So majority of Singaporeans have been choosing cremation. Then after that, they have the final resting place. So in Singapore, we have quite a wide variety now. So you can do sea scattering. So there's different locations in Singapore that you can do sea scattering, land scattering. Today, actually, the papers have announced that there's a second venue. So it used to be just Choa Chu Kang, but they are issuing a second one, which is Garden of Serenity in Mandai, where you can also do inland ash scattering. Yeah. So then, of course, there's also other options like ash diamonds. You have ashes into a diamond. You can have a plant, or you can have a normal, which is a columbarium niche. So columbarium niche, you can have it in, I always say you have government, you have condo style, and then you have landed. Landed is your barrier. But condo style meaning there are some private entities or religious buildings that allow you to have a columbarium, niches to be placed there. And then family members can still pay respect. Yeah. So typically that's how a funeral flow or process is like.
So what does the funeral director do in this whole process? Like what are they in charge of? What what they're supposed to do? Yeah.
I guess, when I did my certificate in funeral directing, I then learned that the term funeral director in Singapore is loosely used, right? Funeral director is like, wow, everybody wants to hold the title as a funeral director because it's equivalent to a managing director. But when I did my certificate, then I realized, funeral directors is just the person who directs the funeral, just like your movie director. Yeah, right.
Okay.
So then you have a funeral arranger. So the funeral arranger is the one who arranged the funeral. It could be the same person, it could be a different person. Then they pass the job over to the person who's doing the director, the funeral director. So that means on the funeral day, they will be the one who makes sure everything is in place. That's why you call them the director. Then of course there's the operation team. So maybe in Singapore, everyone wears a lot of hat lah. So I will just talk about in general what happens, what's the role of a funeral team. So when the family have to make the funeral arrangement, so the arranger will ask questions, how many days, and then they will then also liaise with the suppliers, the contractors, because if you're looking at Singapore, our turnaround time has to be pretty much within the same day or the next day. So the funeral setup, the tentage and all that has to be up in terms of hours. So so they will just want to make sure everything is in place and then to support the family in terms of all this logistical arrangement. Then you have another team, the embalmers, the back of the house, the decedent care team who will be taking care of the deceased body. Whole entire process, is really taken care by an entire team. So you have the operation, the pallbearers, and then you have to get in the religious leaders. Sometimes if you look at Taoist funeral, you need the priest to be involved and there's certain rituals to be done. So I guess, I would use the word the funeral team because funeral director is just one person, but you need an entire team to run a funeral, efficiently.
But actually hearing there's so many team members and there's so many things going on during your business time, right? I don't know whether is there such a thing as a slow period or fast or peak in
season,
there's a season. So suddenly there's always a funeral. I don't know, there's a funeral season. There's suddenly every void deck suddenly you see is filled, no space.
Yeah, you do actually see the season. I typically have people who always text me like, hey sis, is there a season now? I keep seeing funeral at void deck, everywhere I go. So yeah, it's true, there is season. But actually I asked other countries, when I go visit, they also have season. But their season was different from Singapore season. Yeah, so every country have their own seasons. Yeah. Typically, winter time is usually higher, I guess, because of the cold and the change of weather. Yeah. But so in Singapore, we do have season. But I have to say, every year, the season sort of change. Yeah. In the past, it was maybe a bit more consistent. But now it's a bit erratic, you don't know when. It's like weather change suddenly. So sometimes you expect, this month to be a bit quieter, but suddenly you have a surge, right? And then I don't know, maybe we need AI, ChatGPT to help us put in all the data and tell us, let us predict. Hard to predict, really. This, in this industry, it's not like your F&B business where you can estimate, right, number of inflow, outflow, or the customers you serve in a day. Yeah, in our line of work, it's not as predictable per se.
Then will you say that because in the start you mentioned that your mom tried to dissuade you from joining the industry because of the difference in competition? Will you say that this industry is competitive?
I think in the past it was not, because in the past nobody really want to be in this industry, right? But I think over the last few years, there's a lot of TikTok, social media, younger people are joining. The barrier entry in Singapore is actually zero. So there's very low barrier of entry, unlike in other countries. So I'll give you an example, like in United States, to be a funeral director, you need to be licensed. So they call it a licensed funeral director. Yeah. So you need a 3 years education, get a degree in a mortuary science, then work for a company, internship for 1 year. Then you apply for license. So you sit for a licensing exam in that state. So if you are you want a license in Washington, you sit for the exam. Then when you move to another state, then you sit for the exam. So that's why the funeral director is called licensed funeral director. Whereas in Singapore is everybody can just go online, register, and then they can become a funeral director. So actually, it became more competitive. I mean, you have influencers who also promote and say they are also in the funeral business. Yes. But in terms of a shop front, there's quite a handful who has shop front only, right? Majority of them don't have a shop front. Usually they are sort of like agents, whereas for us with a shop front, we have a higher overhead. So I guess there's also things that we can do. And I think people need to be more aware, because I know that times when they are in that vulnerable state, they may not make the right decision. So they may just go to the Google and see and call and make the decision straight away.
Correct. They may be rash to see. I believe because you have also seen and you give a fresh perspective. What are some of the gaps you like actually identified?
I think the first gap was a female in the industry. That was in 2004 when I first joined. I felt like, wow, there's really no ladies, right, as an operation team. And I remember when I wanted to touch the departed, so one of my ex-staff, my dad, well, I would say he really, really piang with my dad since the beginning. So he has maybe 30 years of experience. He's 30 years older than me. So he actually made this comment and he said, hey, 你是女孩子, you're a girl, don't touch the body if it's during your month. Yeah, the time of the month.
Okay. Yeah.
So then I was a bit puzzled, like, what do you mean? Like, I mean, I cannot touch just because, I'm dirty. I don't know whether you watch this show called The Last Dance. It's a Hong Kong film. Okay, that show, there's a 对破地狱. So there's one scene where she also, there's one scene where I say, hey, you're dirty or something, right? So actually I can resonate so well in that particular scene. Brand looks a bit confused. Don't worry, go and watch the show.
I'm going key down my memory. Watch The Last Dance.
yes, you need to watch that show. So actually, I can relate to the lady because in 2004, that was what happened. And then I remember there were also the lack of knowledge. So I felt like, wow, it was very difficult to work with my dad's team. And also my mom was getting a bit, she didn't want me to jeopardize because I was trying to tell the team, oh, I want this to be done. But it's wearing a very newbie lens, like, wow, I don't like this, you shouldn't do this. So you all should change. And they are not used to it. Like, give you an example, there was one uncle who, he's a part-timer, and in front of the family members while we were doing the ritual, or the farewell ritual, he was sitting at the side and he was smoking, his yuhunki. Then I went over, I did what I think naturally should be done at the funeral. So I went over and say, Uncle, 你要抽烟可以去那边抽烟嘛? Like if you want to smoke, you smoke the other side. Yeah. Wow, that day when I went back to the funeral home, my mom said, wow, 你 chili padi 啊? 每条街, like everyone on the street call you chili padi because of what you just said to this uncle. So apparently he told everybody I was very fierce. I was very nice. I said, Uncle, 你要抽烟去那边抽, like get out of my, like a better word. I didn't say, hey, get the, but I just said, can you smoke over there, right?
Correct.
So then it became like, wow, this, I'm using daughter, wow, very chili padi, see me. So I realized, wow, to accept women in the industry was a challenge back then. And then, so I think that also made me realize why. Even the first time when I wore a dress to funeral, to farewell, my mom was like, wow, you wear dress, how to work? Or I wear my heels. She's like, how you work? I said, can what? I mean, I can still run in my heels. Why can't I wear a dress? And it was also inspired by a funeral home that I saw in Australia. They are called the White Ladies. So the ladies all wear heels, all wear dresses, and they are the pallbearers. Yeah. So when I was having that break, right, I went to work in the financial advisory. Actually, I supported my mom part-time on the side. So we actually hired Australian embalmer, and he was the one who shared a lot of information with me. Yeah, so I think we owe it to. I mean, I have to say that he really impacted our family quite a lot because my sister became inspired to be an embalmer, and then my mom opened up her eyes, like, oh, actually, there's nothing to fear about the departed. And then he also shared with me that, oh, you should consider, start maybe introduce more ladies. So at this moment, I think 80% of my team members are ladies actually.
Oh,
yeah. So we have one of the highest female team, I think, in the industry. Not that male can't do the job, but sometimes it can be a bit sensitive. Like example, single ladies, right? Never been touched by another male, example, or prefer a female team. So it's easier for us. Or a little kid who's a daughter, parents may want to choose a female team for their daughter's funeral. So I think that's where we step in. But I guess in 2004 and now, a lot have changed. Back then, it wasn't so professional. Like the smoking is one thing, right? But nowadays, you don't see that lah. It's very rare that you see all this. So they are graduating already lah from the industry. These old guys, yeah.
Currently, do you still feel that there's any like existing gaps that you feel that can be filled?
There's definitely a need to control the number of funeral directors. I guess because you earlier on asked the question about competitiveness. There are a lot of us who have a proper shop front, and we actually have higher overheads costs. But when you, and maybe in a way, we also have a lot more support and system or processes in place. But for those individuals who may be just acting as agent, not saying all of them, but some of them may not have that kind of knowledge. And I always highlight that a funeral is a one time, is a once in a lifetime. So you don't want it to be a bad experience. You want to make sure you give your loved one a meaningful farewell. So I think the gap is allowing more members of public to know, to actually choose wisely, get word of mouth, get experience share before you decide, oh, this is the company. Because sometimes being overwhelmed with grief, you may just grab the first person and then not knowing that actually there's a lot of maybe hidden costs or maybe certain expectation that you expected but you didn't get it.
Although the industry has changed, what do you think are some common misconceptions people still have about the industry that people should change?
I think members of public, still a lot of education needs to be done. Invited to do a sharing at this active aging group. So I know the facilitator, so they knew that I was also doing legacy planning. So when I talk about legacy planning, it's to not talk about only funeral. It's about your advanced care planning, whatever the government has been pushing up. And actually, just a few days ago, I met her and she said that, some of the seniors, they share that they were not comfortable, but in general, during the session, I get people who are like, wow, eye-opener. And then, so I asked, why were these people not comfortable? I think what she was trying to share with me is there's still a group of people who are not comfortable. But I always say that, that 生老病死 when I was growing up, 生老病死是人生必经之路. We all have to go through these 4 phases, right? And that was how I grew up thinking that this is going to happen. But it's not true because some people 生老死 never 病 never fall sick. Some people 生病死 never 老 never grow old, right? And some people 生了就死了 没有病也没有老 never grow old, never fall sick. So actually the only constant is death. So, but yet we don't talk about it. Like maybe today we have this conversation, which is why I'm so happy to be invited, because we really need more people to start the conversation, and it shouldn't be a taboo to talk about it. I think growing up, we have always trying to siam, right? And we feel like the more we don't talk about it, death will not come. But I don't think so. We can't do the catch me if you can, because it will come. So rather than avoid this topic, I think it's so comforting for family when they know what their loved one wanted, rather than be caught in a moment where they are guessing, Pa like this not, or I think Pa like this, and then you get into disagreement. No, I think I want to do this for Pa. And we've seen it so often, right? Where someone doesn't have clarity, families start to doubt each other, start to argue, start to think they are the better child, and I know that best. Then this one say, I live with that more, But if that has already instructed, actually, I've done a few funerals where it's pre-planned and we have to conduct the funeral when the person passed. There's so much calmness and so much clarity and acceptance of, this is what he wanted. So let's do it the way he wanted. And it really brings a lot more focus on being together rather than, did we make the right decision? Is there any regrets we have? So I guess that's always something that if we can help to increase or have more awareness, death awareness, I think that will be the gap that I hope to close.
Now, because just now you talk about members of public, so what is, maybe you name one thing about the industry that you hope to change?
I think we are at works with that. So we started the education program, right? So for the longest time, I've always been very, I always feel that we need to have education because I didn't get an education in Singapore. I actually did it in distance learning in a Canadian school, Mount Royal University. So it really opened up my eyes when I went through the modules and I actually have to sit for exam. There's so much to learn about funeral directing. It's not just, knowing someone who has casket supplier or knowing a tentage company and you become a funeral director. There's really education, there's really communication, or things where people ask you, oh, what is embalming? Can you explain to me? I can tell you 21 years ago when people ask about embalming, right, I still remember the typical response from any funeral industry professional or rather workers will be 拍針咯，就是拍針咯，打針打針，拍針。Then I say, hey, 唔是拍針，拍針 is you inject
Inject, yeah.
Yeah, you draw out and then
You drain,
you drain and then you inject chemicals into displays, right? So that the body can be preserved. So so then I was like, but now people are, they can Google, ChatGPT. So you cannot give them the kind of answer like 就是这样子的. It's just done this way. You either follow or you don't do, right? So so I think that something have changed. And then education is important, which is why 2 years ago when ITE started this pilot run and we actually communicated during COVID of how we can structure out a module. So we are very happy that it's now in the second year and we have a lot of intakes to gather more. So I think education is one. I think the death awareness, death awareness, or even the funeral directors, I think having 门槛比较高一点, the barrier. It's not that we don't want people to join, but we just want to make it a bit more professional, right? If you go to other countries, the barrier of entry is high. They have to go through education. You have to pass certain papers, then you become a funeral director. Just like any, let's say, gynecologists or doctors, a professional. We talk about FA, financial advisor.
Yeah.
You need to sit for 6 paper, I heard. Yeah. So similarly, it's just to understand the market space so that it will help the industry also bring up the standard, and then also have family members to have a better experience because these people have already passed, right? Just like a property agent also have to take papers, right? So similarly, a bit more maybe of that.
You mentioned previously just now that your sister was also an embalmer too, right? Also, was that like you all together come out together like, oh, actually like can work as a team?
No,
and,
not really. I think you should invite my sister for interview. So actually, interestingly, all the girls are all in the industry already. My elder sis is helping my mom in my dad's brand, and then I have my own brand. And then my younger sis Sarah, she married a funeral director, so they also have their own brand. And then my sister runs a embalming team. So she's well equipped. I think she's one of the largest embalming team. So a lot of the funeral directors we let her handle the cases, because I think embalming is another thing that we so when Andrew, the Australian embalmer, came, he really opened our eyes of using different chemicals and different method, right? So it's not just formalin, but using international imported chemicals, because every disease bodies are different. So you cannot use one chemical for everybody. So if someone who have edema, you need a certain chemical so that you can lighten away the yellowish, right? Or someone with edema or a jaundice, so every departed has different use. I mean, the mixture will be different. She has a lot of female embalmers as well. So whenever we need someone have requested for a female embalmer team, and then also Showers of Love is also for ladies also. Showers of Love is where we do the final dressing and makeup. So so it will be done by ladies team.
So your family actually have like 3 separate
brands.
Correct.
So are we competitors?
Because I want to say like, so you decide when you first started to because you started Life Celebrant and together and the Life Legacy, right? So like, was there like any competition, or was it to complement, everybody complement each other?
So it's a very good question, because every time when people ask me like, how can you compete with your mom? And then 这个不孝女, this unfilial daughter. Then I say, no, you must understand, my mom is Scoot, I'm SQ. So we are all same umbrella, right? So you have, you have Toyota,
which is true,
it's true. Right? So it's different brand, different take. So for us, we maybe have a lot more because even in 2010 when I started the Life Celebrant, there were people who asked, my mom was the one who asked me, you somehow celebrate. What's there to celebrate? How can people celebrate? She couldn't understand the concept. Right, she just feel that 人死了, where is there?
Why is
Because
there
she's never been exposed, but I have been exposed. I went to attend a funeral in New Zealand, and it just switched my mind completely. And I said, I want this in Singapore. I want to create a more celebration style, right? So actually, if you think about it, funeral is actually our life graduation ceremony, 人生的毕业典礼, right? So on that ceremony, or that graduation, what do you want to be remembered? So I find that has more meaning. And then, so we are different brand, but same, same family, but different branding for different target groups, I guess.
Okay, so actually the next part, I'm supposed to ask you about pre-planning, about ACP, about LPA and AMD. But I think you covered that already. So I think we can spend more time talking about the stories, because I think one of the few stories that really captured me in the book was, I think one of it you spoke about how for the first time of your life you had a little girl, I think 6 or 9 years old. She planned her own funeral, right? She was the one that's pushing the whole process along. And then you also had a shock where the lady pre-planned her own funeral. Everything seemed very normal, and then she killed herself like nobody knew that she killed herself. So I just want to ask, because this book, I think the print that I read was in 2022. Since then, were there other more memorable stories or stories that you didn't put in the book that you can share with us?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this book was 2022. So during COVID, I actually had this lady. She was only a few years older than me. So I received a call asking me that they read that I actually do a biodegradable urn plant. So we have this where you can put the ashes and then we can put it into a pot and you can keep the plant at home. So then the person on the other line, I continue to ask, who are you planning for? He said, my sister is inquiring. I said, would you prefer that I speak to your sister so that I can give her more options? And then she said, let me check if she would like to meet you. So the next thing I know, she texts me and say, my sister actually heard of you, so she wants to meet you. So what happened was her palliative care doctor is actually my friend. So we were just talking, but never reveal who she was and all that. So my friend, being her palliative care doctor, said, you would have loved what Angjolie is doing. So she was just dropping names to tell her this is, if you want to do it this way, this should be something you can consider. So it's all coincidental. It wasn't meant to be referred me to go and see. It was a few weeks later, then I got the call from the sister, right? So when I went to the hospice and meet her, I still remember we were sitting outside waiting because apparently there was someone visiting her at first. So they say, hey, you wait a while because my sister actually have a schedule. So I think she's a planner. She's very meticulous. So she were in her, when she was at the hospice, right? She still keep note who she's meeting, how many hours she allocate. Wow. So her diary, right, her planner is all handwritten, who is coming from this time to this time. So when I met Aggie, her name is Aggie, the minute I meet her, wow, she's so full of life. She was like, wow, Angjolie, wow, I meant to meet you, wow. Then we laugh a lot. And in that room, it was her husband and her 2 sisters were there. So altogether, there were 5 of us in the room. But I think we were so noisy, but because we keep chatting about, what she wanted. Then when we asked certain things, then she cracked a joke. I remember asking the question to her, she wanted to be dressed in this particular outfit. She said, Angjolie, I want to wear this t-shirt and I just want to wear this pair of jeans. And then so I asked the question would you like your, the husband, Gabriel, would you like Gabriel to dress you? Then she looked over at the husband and said, hey, you want to dress me or not? In this very, cut and straight call, you want to dress me or not? Then his reply was, no, I will leave it to the professional. So, it was very lovely that it was just open conversation. The 2 sisters also, whenever I proposed something, I said, would you like this? Then everyone fill in the blanks maybe we can do this. Or would you like this? So, the part that I remember most was towards the end, I asked her if she has any message that she would like to pre-record so that I will play at the funeral. And she's like, that's a good idea. So I asked her, if you want, I can do a video and I record you and I keep it. Or I do a audio recording. So at that point in time, she actually had a very big lump on her face. So she said, no, I don't want a video. I don't look as good now, but I would like an audio. So she said, oh, how do I give it to you? Because I don't want the family members to know, right? So I said, oh, send me to my email. So let's get in touch. So I have a number, and then a few weeks later, about 5 days before her passing, she texted me and said, oh, Angjolie, I just sent you 3 files. Okay, so I went through the files, and then I'm like, oh, okay, so I know how to place, the 3 piece of the audio recording. So the first one was a song that she sang, but you can hear from her sound, she was actually very, she doesn't have that strength to sing, but you can hear her breathing hard throughout the song. But it was still so meaningful, because I remember in my service, I said, this is the debut, no one have heard it before, and this is the first time we hear this song that is sang by her. So then when I played it, at the end of the song, actually everybody did like, without me initiating, right, everybody clapped. Wow, such a beautiful song. And then the second one was a song that she changed the lyrics to the tune Sound of Music. But it was sang by her music therapist. But the last audio recording, I felt is the most meaningful. So in the email, she said, Angjolie, you remember, this is the song you play. This is the audio you play only when they are about to leave the room. So when I hear it, I was like, oh, now I know. It makes sense. Okay. So, I'm happy to show that clip with you, because it's used with permission, the audio clip. So when we ended the service, so I share her life story. I got people to share the eulogy. So at the end, I said, thank you all for coming for Aggie's farewell. So now I would like to invite all of you to the reception area where the family has prepared some light refreshments. So when everybody was getting up, taking their bags, and they started to move, and then I played the last audio, and then it goes like this. She said, Alamak, why are y'all still here? It's time to go. So it was a very nice ending. So everybody laughed, and then it's like, don't worry, we are just, separated temporary, but one day we'll meet again. Then I said, okay, so now go and drive your bosses a bit nuts. Yeah. And then say, okay, ciao, ciao, have a good day. And that was so uplifting. So everybody came to me and said, wow, that was such a beautiful farewell. It's really what she would have wanted. And everything that we did in that space was all what she wanted. Her painting, she did a few paintings when she was going through chemo and when she was in a hospice, and that was her art therapy. So we display like a art gallery, and then she actually wanted everybody to fold a lotus. So we found a video and we created QR code for people to scan to learn how to do the lotus and then place it in her casket. So everything there was reflected. This story is not in the book. So we actually had that for her. And I also had a funeral where it was my very first pre-planned case. So this lady, her name is, actually she's in the book. So, Jing Yong, if you look at the book, there's one picture on the last one where this lady, so this is Susan. Susan actually is my very first pre-planned client. And this plant is actually her son, Jean. So when her son, Jean, passed away at 30 years old, she came to me, very frantic. It was, it's almost, I think 6 years anniversary already. So he passed away during, on National Day. National Day, he passed away. And then I remember receiving a call early in the morning, and she was very frantic over the phone, like, Angjolie, my son died. So, I said, don't worry, I'm coming now. So I didn't even take my laptop. I just changed and I ran, I drive over there. So the son passed away in his sleep. So I remember the police was activated because he passed without a known reason, right? Because there was no cause of death. So the IO, investigating officer was very nice. She said to me, we need to go to the office to look at the CCTV because she has recording of the CCTV. But at that moment, right, that moment, she couldn't log in at home. She was just too frantic. Yeah. So I said, don't worry. And then the IO is a female. I always remember her. She said to me that I can't put Susan in my car. I said, don't worry. I will drive Susan. You just tell me where to go. So I drove Susan. And then I remember in the car, she's a single mom. And, she has brought up these two boys by herself lah. So Jean, the elder son, is actually a special needs kid, and he was actually due to go to school. Actually, he went through a medical checkup. So it was also puzzling why he suddenly had a heart attack and he passed a cardiac arrest. Yeah. So we went to the NUH because her office is there. And then we saw the CCTV, the IO saw, and then straight away she's like, okay, you can take over the case. So basically, when there's a cause of death that we know that, is not due to foul play, usually that's where we can take over and get a doctor to come and certify. So I remember she came to me. I told her, don't rush into getting a columbarium niche. Buying a columbarium niche or a final resting place is like buying your future home. Right? You want to go and visit a place. You want to feel good. You want to be comfortable. You don't want to do it recce. You don't want to rush and then buy a property or house. Then you don't like. Oh, you scatter already. Then you regret. Like, hey, I want to keep the ashes, right? So we always tell family, don't rush. This decision, 不要马虎, don't rush. So I told her, after the funeral, I will take Jean's ashes back. Then we talk about his resting place. So I share with her a few options, but I actually told her, why don't you consider a plant? Because Jean and Susan, they actually sleep on the same bed, right? So he's been sleeping with mommy, since he was born, and then they were never separated. He will go everywhere mommy go. So I said to her, why don't we consider a plant? So she said, oh, that's actually a good idea. So we took about a month for her to decide, and then she asked a few friends. I still remember she asked me, Angjolie, what if I put it at home on this plant, and then my friend don't want to come and visit me because of this, like he's at home. Some people pantang, right?
Yeah.
Then I just told her, then don't invite them. She was like, oh, don't invite them. Don't invite them if they are pantang. And just meet outside. But people who don't mind will, so there's always a saying, right? People who matter won't mind. So I said, you just go with what you feel best, because you want to. I didn't want her to travel to the columbarium niche every day because she wants to go and see her son. So I said maybe the best is the plant. So that's why we have this plant for her. And then Jean was, she set up I don't know whether you see the couch at the back, the red couch.
Yep.
So it's actually placed just outside her door. So every day she can talk to Jean. But unfortunately, 2 years ago, she also passed. So with that surviving son, I remember he called me and he said, Mommy asked me to call you when things happen. Because she already pre-planned with me 10 years ago. So in 2023, when the son called me and told me that mom has a brain aneurysm, actually I'm supposed to meet her for lunch, but then she was actually on her way to go to Genting, so she said, hey, let's meet for lunch when I come back. But unfortunately, during that trip, she had a brain aneurysm, then fell into a coma for a couple of months, then unfortunately passed away. And I was so sad that I was not in Singapore when she passed. I have a very deep impression of her lah. Yeah, so I'm glad that we have this feature of her, so I can remember Susan.
I think it was really such an awesome episode to get to hear your side of the story and to learn more about the industry lah.
Thanks for asking.
Before we go, do you mind sharing with our listeners and our viewers, like where can they find you and like what's your social media, this kind of stuff?
I can share the link. I'm basically accessible like on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok also. 小红书 not yet. So, but the best is to reach out to me over LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. TikTok, I usually we post lah, but the easiest way is really, and I will always respond. So, and also I have my own podcast. So if anyone is interested to learn more, actually my podcast is Dying to Meet You on Spotify and Apple Music. Yeah, so you can watch, or YouTube. I also have a YouTube channel, also called Dying to Meet You, the title of my book. Yes.
Thank you so much for your time. I'd like to end the episode with a quote from your book. It's called, don't just add days to your life, but add life to your days.
Yes, well said. 对. So yeah, go and live your life. You only have one life. So make the best out of it. Yeah. Thank you so much for this. So hopefully next year my third book will come out. And then I'll be happy to give your team a copy of my book also.
Thank you.